Buti na lang, hindi pa tayo nag-start. No? Alright, so in terms of, again, in terms of the budgeting or in terms of the standard costing, is what if you have more standard cost versus the actual, meaning you have a favorable, right? So meaning, in terms of the standard cost, it is basically based on the per unit. How about the budgeting? It is based on the total, no? Total or budgetary control, no? That's why you have your budget reports. So kaya nga after this, I will record myself and I will explain naman about budgeting, okay? For master budget, okay? And same as standard costing, you compare them, you compare also the actual results with the plan objectives, no? Basically, same pa din, actual results versus the budget. Okay? Then also, bakit kailangan ng budget? O Mika, Aliling, bakit kailangan ng budget? Hi Mika.
Sir, ano po ulit? Sorry
Why
po.
is it that we need to have a budget reports?
Para sir makita po yung allocation nung
Right? So
pera.
allocation, yung pera. Alright. And then also, of course, sabi nga ni Miss Marikay, is basically you compute for the favorable and unfavorable. Tama din yun, Mika, no? You can also be able to compute the money, okay? Or the cash outflow or cash inflow. And also, no, you provide feedback daw needed for the management if it is favorable or unfavorable. Yan. Alright. Okay. The word here is whether the actual operations are on course. Okay? So, 'di ba? Pwedeng mas malaki ang actual mo versus the budget or pwedeng mas malaki ang budget mo versus the actual. Alright. Control in terms of budget. No, it involves developing your budget. Alright? So, very important is that you develop your budget. That's why you have also here master budget. O, saan nagsisimula ang budget pala? Saan nagsisimula ang budget? Anyone? Oh. Okay, may nag-message. Alright, capital ba? Sabi ni Alvon, capital. Alright. Clue.
Sir, sa cost po.
Cost ba? Cost muna ba ang kailangan mong i-budget? Alright. Nasa income statement. Nasa income statement. Account. Funds?
Income po.
Saan? Net income. Expenses ba? Meaning you need to what do you call that? You need to budget muna expenses. Cash. Alright. Take note nasa income statement account. Diba? Sabi number 1, you develop budget. O, saan ba nagsisimula ang budget? Kasi pag expenses, gastos ba kaagad? Okay? Gastos ba kaagad? Kailangan ba gastos kaagad? Income ba? Cost of goods sold? Alright. Ano yan? May nagsabi. Sino yan?
Sales po, sir.
Alright. Tama, Mika. No? It will start to your sales. Take note of this, no? Nagsisimula ang budget sa sales. Why? Of course, if you have your sales budget, alam mo na kung saan ka magsisimula, di ba? Kung gastos muna, cost of goods sold or cash, no? Hindi, no? In terms of the master budget, nagsisimula dapat sa sales. Let's say your sales is 1 million, no? Meaning 1 million should be your expense budget, should be production budget, all the budget should be not more than 1 million. Why? Kasi you have the basis of 1 million as your sales budget. Okay, very good, Mika. All right. So don't worry, in my recording of Zoom in budgeting, I will explain to you about budgeting. Okay? After that, you analyze them between actual and your results, budget results. So tama yung sinabi ni Kay, no? So standard costing is basically per unit, while budgeting is basically based on total, okay? Actual and your results or budget results. And after that, ganun na lang ba? No? You develop budget, then you analyze them. Very important also that you take corrective action. Okay? So hindi pwedeng magaling ka lang mag-prepare ng FS or ng budget, without the corrective action, di ba? O, ano bang ibig sabihin niyan? Okay? Bakit mas malaki ang expenses mo, mas malaki yung sales mo compared to your budget? Yan. Alright. And after that, let's say, mas malaki pa yung actual expenses mo sa travel and transportation versus your budget. Yung pala, the reason why, because hindi na pala updated yung inyong per dime rate sa hotel, no? Yung pala, ang per dime mo is only 1,000. Yung pala, ang per dime na pala ay 5,000 na per night. Meaning, you should modify the future plans, no? You should modify. What else? How about in terms of your sales? Diba? You have more sales coming June, pero yung pala, hindi pala, no? Meaning, mas maliit pala yung sales mo pag June, July. Why? Kasi tuition. Yan. Meaning, you modify the future plans, no? Ahead of time. Okay? And also, of course, you repeat the cycle. Okay? You develop budget. Again, it will start with your sales budget. Okay? And then after that, you analyze them after your actual versus the budget result. No? And then if you have corrective actions, then you modify it. And after that is you repeat the cycle. All right. Control in terms of the budget. No? From the word itself, control. Budgetary control. You control your budget. No? So all of you, I believe all of you will become CPA. Yeah? Certified Public Accountant. 100%. Okay? Uh, because of that, our role no, in corporate, no? Ano, we should control the cost of sales department, logistics department, the finance department, of course, no? The logistics department, the production department. Why? Kasi we should control our cost. We should control the budget, no? So meaning, you identify the name of the budget report, such as especially the sales budget. Bakit? Bakit kailangan yung i-control ang sales budget? Alam nyo ba? Malamang lahat kayo magiging CPA. Ang kalaban natin lagi ay sales. Totoo yan. In reality, in the corporate world, laging kalaban natin ang sales. Why? Sasabihin nila, bakit? Kung wala kami, wala kayong sweldo. Usually kasi medyo mayabang yung mga taga-sales. Totoo yan. Kasi ang iniisip nila Marinel ng bakit daw? Kasi sila daw yung nagbibigay ng pera sa company. 'Di ba? Masyadong mayayabang. As in, totoo 'yon. Masyado daw silang mayabang kasi sila yung nagbibigay ng sales, ng benta sa atin. Kung wala daw yung sales, malamang wala tayong pangsweldo. Ganun yung lagi sinasabi nila, no? So meaning, pagka-arrogante nila, and then at the same time, sabi nila, hindi, our expenses, no, we should not maintain per dime rate. Yan. So, meaning, si Mix. Alright, sige Mix. Alright, so meaning, uh, we should control the sales budget, no? Especially the budget in terms of this, no? We need to control kasi pag hindi tayo mananagot sa department, sa board. Why is it that uh, we have more actual expenses versus the budget in terms of expenses ha? Walang problema if your sales is more than the budget. 'Di ba? Why? Mas maganda 'yan, 'di ba? You have more sales actual versus the budget. Also, we should also maintain the manufacturing overhead budget. Ito naman ay sa production. Yan. Kasi ang dami rin ditong gastos, no? The overhead budget. Alright. Number 2, state the frequency of the report, no? Such as weekly, monthly, yan, or weekly. Okay? Specify the purpose of the report. So, ano bang ibig sabihin nun? Bakit kailangan may report, no? Of course, to control your budget. Alright. Indicate the primary recipients of the report. Okay, sino ba ang recipients? Of course, the board of directors, 'di ba? Yan. Ito yung sample niya. Okay? Sales. So, frequency niya weekly. Determine whether the sales or goals are met, no? Primary recipients of course top management kasi sila yung tumitingin if they have more sales. Okay? Labor naman, of course, weekly, control, direct and indirect. Okay? Then scrap, no, department head, selling, and income. So, meaning, this is the frequency. So, ito naman ay, it will depends naman on the company. Okay? Yan. So, depende yan sa company. Alright. Kasi we have a Christmas party sa DLSU, no? Faculty. Ako daw ay nanalo ng 1,000, GC. Kahit hindi umattend, no? Alright. Purpose. Alright. So, control, overhead, control selling, and so, yun lang naman, no? Alright. Uh, Evaluate the usefulness of static budget report. What do you mean of static budget report? Now, static is a projection of a budget data at one level of activity. At such level, now data for different levels are ignored. Okay? As a result, now actual results are always compared with the budget. Same as the master budget, same as standard costing. We need to compare the actual with the budget always. Okay? So, ito yun. Static budget. To illustrate, alright, let's say you have a sales budget of 180. Your actual is 179. Sige nga, what if your budget is 180? Your actual is 179. The difference is 1,000. Favorable or unfavorable? Anyone?
Favorable, sir.
Alright, favorable. Why favorable? Because you have,
Kasi
ano yan? Favorable or
kasi po,
unfavorable?
sir, mas malaki yung na budget mo kaysa dun sa
Alright.
nagastos.
Ano yung answer mo? Okay? Favorable or unfavorable? Sales to, ha?
Sales nga pala po yan, sir.
Alright,
So,
sales to, ha? Favorable or unfavorable?
kala ko po unfavorable kasi
Alright.
inisip ko po cost.
Alright. So, it is unfavorable. Take note of this. Unfavorable kasi yung binudget mo, yung finorcast mo ay 180. Your actual sales is only 179. 1,000 here is unfavorable. How about if it is expense? Let's say this is operating expense. This is favorable. Take note, ha, sa board exam. Sayang, 1 point to, no? Ang tanong lang naman, favorable or unfavorable. How about in the second quarter? Of course, this is also unfavorable, di ba? Unfavorable. Overall, you have unfavorable of 11.5. Why? Your forecast is 390. Your only actual is only 378. That's why it is unfavorable. All right. So take note, it is the master budget. Okay? Anong gagawin natin sa static budget, no? The sales budget below for the first quarter is shown below, di ba? You have 180, ito na pa yung answer. 1,000 unfavorable. Yeah? Unfavorable, because it is your sales. Huwag malito, no? Pero if it is expenses, it is favorable. Okay? Mas malaki yung budget mo, okay lang. Okay? Yan. Alright. In practice daw, each product, okay. Ano yan? The report shows you have 1,000 under budget or unfavorable results. No? The difference of this is less than 1% of your sales. You will assume that top management will view it as immaterial. Alright. So, siyempre, if you divide the 1,000 by 180 as the budget, the difference is only, or let's say, take note, let's say, the management will set 1%. Below 1% immaterial. If you divide that, it is 0.0056. So, meaning it is immaterial. So, meaning, it would, static budget is depende yan sa management, no? To set the materiality or immateriality of the specific budget. All right. How about this? All right, 10.5. Di ba? 1%, no? 1% is your parang ating threshold, no? Second quarter, the sales is 10.5, which is 5% of the budgeted sales, no? Top management dito may conclude that the difference is material, meaning you need to investigate this. Yung pala, natutulog ang mga salesman. Hindi nagtatrabaho. Yung pala ay Christmas vacation na. Christmas vacation na, no? That's why your actual is less than your budget, which is a 5%. So meaning, take note of this, no, investigation talaga. No? Hindi naman siguro investigation. For me, careful ano lang, parang explanation how come that you have a 5% decrease. Okay? Yan. So meaning, illustration, no? Management analysis should start by asking the sales manager the cause of the shortfall. Yan. So, bakit? Ano bang nangyari? Okay? So, the word of investigation kasi parang kakaiba, no? And also, the need for corrective action should be considered. Okay? For example, manager may decide to spur sales by offering incentives. Yung pala, sobrang effort naman ng mga salesman natin, pero talagang walang benta because of pandemic. So, ganun. So, ano gagawin? Maybe offering marketing, increasing advertising. Yan. On the other hand, the management concludes that downturn in economy, yan, because of this pandemic, di ba, is responsible for lower sales. No? It may be decided to modify planned sales, no, profit goals for remainder of the year. So, ganun lang. Okay? Alright. So, what do you mean of this? Static budget is basically appropriate in evaluating the effectiveness of controlling your costs. So, di ba madali lang yung static budget? So, meaning you set your materiality and immateriality. The actual level of this is basically closely approximates the master budget. Okay? So, later I'll discuss master budget now. Or the behavior in response to changes in activity level, okay? Or fix. Yan. O, any question about static budget? Madali lang to, di ba? Static budget. So, just compare it with the actual. Okay? Then, you set the materiality. Kung 1% is immaterial pababa, okay? So, it is immaterial. Okay? Alright. Number 3,
Sir, may
explain. Question,
question.
James.
Sir, kapag sa static budget, sa sales lang lagi mag-depend? Or
Depende. Pwedeng
Okay
sales,
po.
pwedeng expenses.
Thank you po.
Kataon lang na it is a sales.
Thank you po.
Alright, thank you, James. Alright, next, explain the development of flexible. So, we are done with static. Ito naman is flexible budget. Alright, what do you mean of flexible? From the word is a flexi, no? Flexible, nababago. Yan. It projects the budget data for various level of activities. Ayan. The flexible budget is series of static. So, ang dami din, okay? At the different level of activity. Meaning, flexible budget is a series of static, okay? It recognizes the budgetary process has greater usefulness if it is adaptable to change in operating conditions. So, meaning, capable of changing, nababago. Yan. Kaya nga flexible, no? Type of budget, same pa din. Comparison of actual and planned, same pa din, ha? Okay. Alright, for example, Bar and Steel prepares following budget, no, for 1999. So you have here 10,000. You have here cost 250, 260, 190, 280, 70, 50, and 1.1. Okay. Take note, ha? This is the cost, and this is the per unit. Sorry, the units. Okay. Alright. The demand for steel ingots, no, has increased to 12,000 units are produced during the year, no, rather than 10,000. The budget report will show the very large variances. Alright, ito yung budget mo. Okay, production. Kaya lang, your actual mo is 12. Favorable or unfavorable, di ba? Mas maganda nga ito, di ba? Mas malaki yung na-produce mo compare sa production. Kaya lang, ang laki naman na nagastos mo sa cost. Yeah? Because of the comparison is based on the budget data, based on the original, okay, and based on the activity. Okay? Variable budget allowances should increase with production. Meaning, pag tumaas pala ang ating actual, for sure, tataas din ang ating cost for indirect materials, indirect labor, utilities. So in reality, maganda siya if you will increase the production. Pero dapat mas maliit naman yung ating cost. Of course, in reality, ganun talaga, no? Pag tumaas ang ating actual, for sure, tataas ang ating indirect materials, indirect labor, utilities, depreciation. Zero pala to, sorry. Tatlo lang, variable lang pala. Sorry, variable, no? Because of the variable budget. For sure, tataas. Why? Go back to our discussion in cost accounting. Yeah? pag tumaas ang ating production, for sure, variable overhead will also increase. How about the fixed cost? It will remain the same.
Constant po.
Alright, very good. That's why depreciation, property taxes, supervision, you have 0. Indirect materials is part of the variable indirect labor and utilities. That's why you have unfavorable. So overall, you have 132,000 unfavorable. Alright, sige. So anong gagawin natin? Alright. So, meaning it is flexible budget, you need to adjust. Diba? Since the comparison of actual variable with budgeted overhead is meaningless due to different level of activity, variable per unit must be isolated to the budget and can be adjusted. Diba? Flexible meaning it can be adjusted. No? An analysis of this data of these 10,000 unit producers are the following. So you have your 250, 260, 190, and 700. Saan ito galing? 250 divided by 10,000, you have 25. 260 divided by 10,000, you have 26. 190 divided by 10, you have 19. Or overall, you have 70 pesos. Okay? Alright. So, anong gagawin natin? Since it is flexible budget, no? Our budget is only 10,000, the actual is 12, we need to adjust to 12,000. So, paano yan? Okay? So, meaning, 25 times 12, 26 times 12, 19 times 12, no? Meaning, 12,000, therefore, we need to adjust because the fixed, of course, the fixed cost will not change, sabi nga ni Kay, fixed cost, no, will remain the same. All right, just multiply it by 12, 12, 12. So, overall, you have 840. All right. So again, ang ginawa natin, we divide it, sorry, we compute first for the cost per unit. We multiply it by the actual, di ba? 12,000. So yun ito, 840 na, no? From 700 to 840. Okay, what happened now? Okay? What happened now? Of course, with this, since the budget now is flexible budget, you need to adjust, no? From 12,000. Saan to galing 300, 312, 228? Diba ito yan? 300, 312, and 228. Alright, so you have here 300, 312, 228. Flexible budget, you need to adjust the budget. Alright, sir, saan to galing 25, 295? And you have also 312 and 225. Alright, saan to galing 295? Diba ito yan? Sorry. Alright, so since you have 12,000, sorry, ito na yung ating budget, di ba? Di ba? Ito na ating budget. So meaning, what if we have an actual, no? Which is also at 12,000, ito na yung actual natin, no? Na 295. Alright, so meaning, magiging na siyang favorable. Magiging na siyang favorable, di ba? Sige, go back to this, para wag malito. Yan. Okay? 295, 312, 225. Kasi ito yung actual expense natin. So what we did is we adjust it based on the flexible budget to conform with the 12,000. 'Di ba? Ito yung ating actual expense. Nagets ba ako? All right, nagets ba? So meaning because of the flexible budget, we adjust for it based on the 12,000. That's why here you have now 5,000 flexible, no change. Ito naman 3,000 favorable. Fixed costs, walang problema. 'Di ba? Kasi ito ay 0, no change. So overall, hindi na siya kanina 'di ba? 132,000 unfavorable. So favorable na siya with 8,000 favorable. That's the essence of flexible budget. Again, we compute first for the cost per unit, we multiply it with the budget of the 12,000, and then the cost per unit of it, we multiply it with the 12,000 budget. That's why we come up with this, diba? All right. Then we compare it with the actual. Yan. O, any question? Nagets ba ako? All
Yes
right.
po.
All right, sige. Developing the flexible budget. So, baka tanungin niyo, sir, applicable ba sa sales? Yes, no? Applicable siya sa lahat. Diba?
Sir?
Question, Marinel.
Sir, how come po na same pa rin po yung sa budget? na 1-1. Eh, di ba po, 1-1
pa
na rin
din.
po yung nasa kabila.
Ano yun? Same yung?
Same po yung total po sa budget dun sa kabilang na unfavorable.
Ano yung same?
Same po yung amount na 1,100,000.
Same ito?
Sa kabila po.
1,100,000?
Opo. Ayan po. Paano po siya naging?
Same pa. Sige. Tama
Mali
ba?
po.
I-add nyo nga to lahat. 840. Mali to. Sorry, mali to. It should be 840 plus 400. So, very good observation. No? It should be 1.2, no? Hindi. Should be 840 plus 400. Ilan yan? Sorry, baka mali yung ano ko. Kinapi ko lang kasi.
1 to
840
40.
plus.
1 to 40 po
Yan.
dapat.
1 to 40. Tama. So, buti na tama to, no? Tama. Very good. Should be 1 to 40. No? 1 to 40. Less 1 to 32, you have 8 as unfavorable. Very good observation, Marinel. No? Buti pala tama to, no? The 8,000.
Pero tama pa din naman po yung difference, sir.
Oo. I-change ko na nga. Baka mali lang yung plus ko. Should be 1 to 4.
Sir, pati po dun sa isang slide, yung meron po ata dun dapat 52,000 pero 53 po yung nakalagay.
Antok na ako nito. Saan? Ito?
Sa indirect labor po. Doon po sa taas. Hindi, doon po sa isa pang slide. Sa taas po, 22. Slide 22 po.
22. Saan?
Sa indirect labor po, dapat po 52.
52.
Pero 53 po yung nakalagay.
Pasensya na. Hinaantok na ako. Alright. Sige. Ganun yun. Pag, alam mo ba dati, hindi, although ginawa ko to matagal na, no? That was 5 years ago, no? Dati kasi, di ba, nag-work pa ako. Ginagawa ko to gabi. So, ganun ako hinaantok. Alright. Sige. Alright, thank you. Thank you. At least, ngayon nilang ito napansin, no? Ginagamit ko to sa Lasal, sa Ateneo, as in kayo lang nakapansin, no? Alright, for the past 5 years, no? Alright, sige. Very good. Alright, next. Developing the flexible budget, no? So, next, identify the activity index and relevant range. Sabi, i-save ko pala. Alright, sige. Ito kasi, ito ay QYL, di ba? QYL. Ginagawa ko, inaano ko siya, ini-enhance ko para mas mabilis, di ba? And also, identify the variable cost, no? And the budgeted cost. Same lang to kanina. Fixed cost. So, ito lang yung kanina, ginawa natin, no? And after that, prepare the budget. Di ba? So, kanina to, di ba? What we did. Alright. Okay, flexible budget, no? Case study, okay? Let's say, Fox Company wants to develop a flexible budget, no, for monthly comparison. The master budget for the year ended December 31 is prepared in using 120,000 direct labor, okay, hours. So you have here 180, 140, 60, and you have your fixed costs. Okay. Number 1, identify the activity index and relevant range. No, so activity index here is basically you have 8,000 to 12,000. Okay. So after that, you divide it by 120. Saan to galing 120? Diba ito yan? Okay? So you have 120,000 direct labor to compute for the variable cost per unit per direct labor. Okay? So here you have, parang same lang na ginawa natin, diba? So you have here 1.52 and 0.50. So if you add all of this, you have 4 pesos. And after that, identify the fixed cost component. So meaning napakadali, no? Given to, 'di ba? 15,000, 10 and 5. Okay? So paano 'yan? So within this range, no, you have 8,000, you have 9,000, you have 10,000, you have 11, you have 12. Walang problema if it is fixed cost. 'Di ba, sir? Sana sir, we only budget fixed cost. Okay? If you identify it 15, automatic you have also here, no? Sir, saan galing yung 12? 16, 4. Oh, get first, di ba? Kanina, we get 4. The per unit, di ba? Ito yan. 1.50, 2 pesos, and 0.50. We just multiply it by 8,000. Okay, yun na yan. 12, 16, and 4. We multiply it by 9. Try nyo nga. Malamang yun din yan, no? By 10. Di ba? 1.50 yun. 2 saka 0.5. By 11, by 12. Ganun lang, okay? First thing to do is to compute for variable cost per unit, then compute for the activity index. Di ba? Ito yung activity index, no? Range of 8,000 to 12,000. Then compute again for the fixed cost na pinakamadali sa lahat. Yan. And then add. Napakadali, di ba? Sisiyo sa inyo, flexible budget. Alright. So after that, no, the overhead is 30 pesos. So fixed cost plus variable. Alright. For example, for the fixed costs are 30,000 and the variable cost per unit is 4 pesos. So magkano yan? And what if you have 8.622 as direct labor? Saan galing yung 4? Diba ito yan? Diba ito yan? Ito yan, diba? 4. Alright, so you have here total lang kasi to, total. And then yung variable, yung fixed cost naman is 15, 10, and 5. You have 30,000, diba? So ito yan. So you have here 30,000 plus 4 plus 8622, meaning this is your direct labor hours. So meaning go back to our discussion in the high-low method, di ba? Naalala pa yan. So you have here 64,488. So ganun lang. Okay? Budgeted total cost. Alright. Any questions so far about this static budget?
Lagi po bang direct labor hours yung ginagamit?
Depende. Depende. Pwede machine hours. Yan. So, usually, machine hours dapat. No? Kasi manufacturing siya. Diba? So, depende sa problem, ha? Alright. Any question pa? Alright, none. Next, flexible budget. No? It represents another type of internal report produced by managerial accounting. Flexible budget, no, of two sections, no, production data and the cost data for variable and your fixed costs. Okay. So ito yung tanong ni Kay, no, direct labor hours. Flexible budget are used to evaluate managers' performance in production control and cost control. All right. So ito yung kanina, diba? At 9,000 or at 9,000 direct labor hours. And you have here, sorry, bago na pa lang to. Case study naman, no? Case study pa din. What if you will use, expected is 88, actual mo is 9,000. Alright. So, take note that 13,500 at budget of 9,000, actual cost naman is 9. Okay? Sorry, wala na pala. So, what do you mean of this? Take note of this, no? Kahit pala yung budget mo is 9,000 at direct labor hours, even though you have actual of 9,000, it will vary in terms of your costs. Diba? So, mali pa din yung pag-budget mo ng cost mo. Okay? That's why you have favorable and unfavorable, you have favorable, and you have 100 unfavorable. So, overall, you have a 400 favorable. And so, walang problema if it is fixed cost kasi walang change. And all right, exception by the management now means the top management review of a budget report is directed entirely or primarily to the difference between actual and planned objectives. Yes, diba? So go back again to our basic principles of standard costing or budgeting, wherein we need to uh, discuss, or we need to prepare or to prepare the difference between actual results and planned objectives or your budget. And so again, kanina we discussed also that we should also report, no, the criteria of materiality. Alala pa kanina, no? 1% or 5% is basically the to be effective, no? Okay? And number 2 is controllability. Yan. If the management has the control over that cost, no? The word here is controllable, no? Restrictive in terms of controllable items. Okay? So Sabi, exception guidelines are more restrictive for controllable items than for the items that are not controllable by the manager. O, ano yung controllable? No, you can control your materials, you can control your direct labor, no, you can control your overhead, pero you cannot control the salary, 'di ba? You cannot control the depreciation. You cannot control any other cost which is fixed in amount. And any question about the static budget, flexible budget? Next topic is responsibility accounting. Wala pa question? O, Alvon, wala. Alright. Sige. No question na, meaning you understand. No? Alright, so wala. Next naman is all about responsibility accounting. Now, from the word itself, who are responsible or who is responsible for the revenue, for the cost. And what do you mean of responsibility accounting? No, it involves accumulating and reporting the cost and the revenue where relevant on the basis of the individual manager who has the authority to make the day-to-day decisions, no, about the items. No? Responsibility in terms of evaluation of the manager's performance. Okay? So it is basically based or you will evaluate this now as part of the management control. And all right, responsibility accounting can be used at every level of the management in which the following exist. No? Number one, costs and revenues can be directly associated with a specific level of management responsibility. So if you have revenue and if you have cost, so it is directly associated with a specific level of the responsibility of the management. Number two, take note of this. No? You are only responsible now for the cost or for the revenue as long as you have the control. No? Cost and revenue are controllable at the level of responsibility. For example, si Jalen, no? If you have no control over the depreciation, okay lang yan. You are not responsible for that. Diba? If you have no control in terms of the rental, it's fixed. Okay lang yan. No? The salary of your top management, okay lang yan. Because you have no control over that cost and revenue. Okay? Budget data can be developed for evaluating the manager's effectiveness in controlling the costs and your revenue. Sorry. All right. So here, personalize the managerial accounting system. No? Under this responsibility accounting, any individual who has control and accountable for specified activities, no, will recognize as responsibility center. Okay? So it is also especially valuable in decentralized company. Yes. Also, what do you mean of this? Decentralization. So, sabi niya, responsibility accounting is especially valuable or important in decentralization. Now, means that the control of operation is delegated by top management to many individuals throughout organization. So, ito yung usual na ginagawa natin. In the setup of the Philippine operations, the business, yes, no, top management has many managers, di ba? Yan, throughout organization. So sila yung sila yung bahala sa operation of the business. No? Yung iba mayroong sales manager. Yan. Okay, so San Miguel also decentralization naman, right? Or any other businesses. All right. Segment identified area of responsibility in a decentralized operation. So per segment, ganun din, no? Segment of Red Horse, segment of San Miguelite, segment of Pilsen. So ganun, no? So it is part of the responsibility accounting. Okay. All right. Responsibility accounting versus control in the budget. So as what we discussed a while ago. Okay? Essential daw in any effective system of budgetary control. But it differs from the two aspects in budgeting. Yan. Di ba sabi ko? Distinctions between controllable and non-controllable items. If you can be able to control it, no, you are responsible for it. If none, you are not responsible. No? Performance reports either emphasize or include items, only items controllable by individual man. Yan nga, no? Kanina sabi ko, mas maganda, you have the control over your cost if you have control over your revenue. Uh, but the question is, what do you mean of controllable and non-controllable? Alright, so sabi dito, all costs and revenues are controllable at some level of responsibility accounting within the company. Under this, no, critical issue is whether cost or revenue is controllable at the level of responsibility. Okay. Alright, the cost though is controllable at a given period of time if the manager has the power to incur it within the given period of time. So if you have the power, if you have the control, you can manage it. It is a controllable cost. Take note of this. In general, costs incurred directly by the level of responsibility are controllable at that level. For example, I can control the materials. I can control the direct labor. I can control the some of the overhead because I have the power to incur that. Okay? If I have no power, it is not. It is non-controllable. And incur indirectly and only allocated to responsibility level, meaning you allocate because you cannot control, meaning it is to be set aside based on per product. So non-controllable, ano yun? Mga fixed costs, usually fixed costs is non-controllable. Yan. Alright. Ano naman tong reporting system in a responsibility accounting? It involves preparation of reports for each level of responsibility accounting shown in the company's org chart. So, parang ano siya, parang org chart na. Who is responsible for sales operations? Si Alvon pala yun. Who is responsible for finance? Si Marinel. Who is responsible for production? Si Jalen. And responsibility accounting no, permits the management by exception at each level of responsibility within the organization. So there are types of responsibility center, meaning you are responsible for this. Number one, cost center. Most plants operation, planta, are cost center. Bakit? Ginagawa mo lang ay mag-produce ng product mo. You only incur costs, but no revenue. Does not directly generate revenue. So, sino yung mga cost center? Yun nga, mga planta. No? Kasi, ang ginagawa mo lang ay mag-produce. So, more inventories. Alright. How about profit center? Ito naman yung mga sales offices. Diba? Yes, you incur costs, but you have income or revenue. Okay? My first job in San Miguel was in Naga Sales Office, Naga Sales Operation. So what we did is more on the profit center. We have a revenue and we have a cost. And then eventually, nalipat ako sa Santa Rosa plant. So basically, it is naman cost center. Okay? Kaya ikaw, Jalen or Alvon, no? Wag kang bibili ng beer sa planta. Diba, ganun yung lagi, no? Sabi niya, pwede bang bumili ng beer sa planta? No, no? Why? Kasi ang ginagawa nila ay mag-produce ng beer. It is basically the cost center. 'Di ba? Ganun yung iba, 'di ba? Ganun yung parang perception ng iba na if you are working in San Miguel sa planta, ikaw ay nagbebenta ng beer. Hindi, no? Ginagawa mo lang ay mag-produce ng beer product. You are the cost center. Saan ka bibili ng beer? Sa profit center, which is the sales offices. Yan. Kaya pag nakita kayong Coca-Cola bottling plant, no? Pupunta ka doon para bumili. Lay? Diba hindi? Alright. Yan. Pupunta ka sa sales offices. Alright. And you have also investment center. Ito naman, combination of cost center, profit center, and you have an investment. It is also known as investment centers. You incur costs, you have revenue, at the same time, you have a control over investment funds. So, sino to? Usually, ito yung head office head office to, no? Kung San Miguel, kami ang brewery, okay? Profit center, sales offices, investment center naman ay head office. Okay? So, bakit head office? Kasi we if you are in the head office, you consolidate all the profit, then you have your costs, and also you have also the control over your investment. So you have an investment center. All right. Any question about cost center, profit center, and investment center? Any question?
Sir, sa mga investment centers, pwede ka dumiretso doon para bumili or sa profit center lang?
No, profit center pa din. Okay?
Paano siya nag-generate ng revenue, sir?
Ng alin?
Sabi niyo, investment centers both incur costs and generate revenues.
There are also other revenues, di ba? Yung San Miguel Corporation, hindi lang naman beer, di ba? We have San Miguel Pure Foods. Also, we have Petron. We have also the Stallways. Na yun. So,
Okay.
meaning investment centers, basically, we have also other, di ba? Center. Lang ha. Alright, sige. Thank you, Jalen. Alright, so cost center, usually production center or service center or plant. Diba? Profit center is also yon individual department store of retail store, branch offices. Sa bangko pala, no? Profit center yon, di ba? Yan. Investment center, head office, subsidiary companies. Yan. Ito yung mga sample. Okay. Alright, sige. One by one tayo, no? Responsibility center for the cost center. For the cost center. Alright. In evaluating the manager's performance, no, the cost center is basically the ability by the company to control the cost. The word here, manager's ability to meet the budgetary control of goals for controllable costs. No? Responsibility accounting or reports, no, for cost centers compare actual controllable costs with the flexible budget data. Di ba? We discussed kanina flexible budget. Controllable costs. You should control the cost in order for you to have or to become or to be responsible or to have responsibility of it. Di ba? Only controllable costs are included in the report, no? And fixed and variable costs are not distinguished. Okay? Again, go back to our discussion in the CVP analysis. Ano nga yung, and also relevant costing last time. Diba? Alright, so in terms of it, no? Fixed and variable, diba? But in terms of this responsibility accounting, we will not set aside or we will set aside first now variable and fixed costs. So we will now have controllable and non-controllable costs. No? All right. Sige. Assume that this finishing department manager is able to control costs in the report of this. No? All right. Overhead is you have controllable costs. You can control your indirect materials. You can control your indirect labor. You can control your utilities and supervision. Meaning supervision, you have no control because you have zero. Yes, you have control pa rin, pero you have zero variances. Indirect materials, of course, you have 500 unfavorable. The indirect labor, you have 1,000 favorable. Utilities naman, you have 100 unfavorable. So overall, you have 400 favorable. All right. Okay. So meaning, cost center is merely cost. Yan. All right. Sige. Next, identify the content of the responsibility report for profit center. All right. How about profit center? No? The operating revenues and variable expenses are controllable by managers of the profit center. Okay? Na. All right. So direct fixed costs, and you have indirect fixed costs. Okay? What do you mean of direct fixed costs, or also known as traceable? All right. Direct fixed costs or traceable fixed costs, okay, are costs that relate specifically to the responsibility center and are incurred for the sole benefit of the center. Okay. Take note of this. Most direct fixed costs are controllable by the profit center. Again, direct fixed cost is controllable by profit manager or profit center manager. From the word itself, traceable direct fixed cost. How about indirect fixed cost? Common cost, no? It pertains to the company's overall operating activities that are incurred for the benefit of more than one profit center. That's why it is common cost kasi pwede siya sa San Miglite, pwede siya sa Red Horse, pwede siya sa per segment. Okay? That's why it is a common cost. You cannot control this indirect cost. That's why it is a common cost. Again, traceable cost is basically you can control this, while common cost or indirect fixed cost, you cannot control this. So meaning it is not part of the responsibility the accounting, okay? But part also of your computation. All right. Sige, para maintindihan, wala pala ako ditong sample. All right. Also, in the profit center, ano nga yung formula to compute for the CVP?
Sales
Sales
less
minus,
total variable cost
very good.
equals to contribution margin
All right.
less fixed cost equals net income.
All right. So very good. Net income. So the CM naman is sales minus total variable cost. Okay. In terms of the variable cost, yan ba ay variable overhead lang or variable, it also includes variable selling?
All po.
All right, both, no? So it includes variable overhead and at the same time variable selling. Okay? Yan. In terms of the responsibility center or profit center, yes, you can still report the CVP format, which is the CM. Kaya lang, hindi na siya contribution margin. It is now called controllable margin. Meaning, kasama na dito yung controllable fixed cost. What do you mean of this? Again, same pa rin, sales minus variable cost is equals to CM. CM minus controllable fixed cost, anong tawag? Controllable margin. Alright. Minus non-controllable fixed cost. Pero sabi hindi na siya reported. That's why uh, you only compute for the controllable margin. Why? Non-controllable fixed cost is basically a not part of the responsibility report. Okay? So here is considered to be the most measure of the manager's performance in controlling your revenue and cost. So hindi pala CM, no? But controllable margin. You can control your cost, your revenue with as part of your responsibility center. Okay? All right. Ito na yan, di ba? For example, no? Managers was below budgeted expectations by 10%. All right. Take note of this. Your budget, sales, variable cost, including the selling, you have CM, then minus the controllable fixed cost. So you have your controllable margin. Kaya lang you have your actual. Dito pa lang unfavorable na, di ba? Okay? Also here you have favorable, 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 and unfavorable. Overall, you have unfavorable. All right, take note of this, no? You will only include here the controllable margin. Okay? Hindi siya net income. Okay? Kasi what we include here is the controllable fixed cost. Tandaan to ha. CM minus controllable fixed cost is your controllable margin. Alright. Sige. Any question of the profit center? Alright, none. Next is investment center. Ito na. Expect this to have computation in terms of computing your return on investment. Okay? And alright, so you have here investment center. Okay? So important of this as the investment center is that the manager can control or significantly influence the investment funds available for use. Alright, here. So, yan, ROI. Okay? So, you need to compute for the ROI if you have this investment center. Okay? So, ROI is considered to be the superior by any other performance measures because it shows the effectiveness of the managers in utilizing the assets of the manager's disposal. So, meaning, return on investment, no, you compute for the effectiveness of the managers, no? Yan. Alright. So, what is the formula? Sorry, ROI muna, no? ROI or investment center, no? So, operating assets, no, consists of current assets and plant assets used in operating by the profit center. Alright, so average operating assets, no, are usually based on the beginning and ending or cost of book values. Alright, investment center or controllable margin in dollar. Let's say you have controllable margin of 1 million. Again, ano nga yung competition for controllable margin? But,
Contribution margin
okay, very
minus
good.
the fixed cost.
Contribution margin. Fixed cost lang ba? What is the keyword? Contribution margin minus
Direct fixed cost daw.
direct fixed cost. Yes.
Controllable fixed cost.
Controllable
Controllable fixed
fixed
cost.
cost. Yan. That's the keyword ha. Baka mali.
Opo.
Baka malagay nyo lahat yung fixed cost. Yan. Let's say you have 1 million. Okay? And after that, average investing center of operating. Take note, no? The operating assets daw consists of current assets and plant assets used in operations. So parang although all of the assets pa din, no? Which is 5 million. So the ROI here is at 20%. And again, average investment center operating assets. Yan. All right. Responsibility accounting for profit center. Yan. Let's say you have budget of 1.2500. Yan. Controllable fixed cost. So, controllable margin is 15%. Saan to galing 15%? 300,000, no? Divided by, magkano yung kanina? Aha, given ba? Sorry. 5 million ba? Hindi, compute natin. So, 300,000. So, 300,000. Sorry. So, 2 million, no? Let's say you have 2 million. 2 million ba dito? Oh, hindi given, no? Oh, let's say you have 2 million. You have 2 million as your average operating assets. So, meaning, 300,000 divided by 2 million. So, you have 15%. Okay? How about your 150? No? 264 divided by 2 million. You have 13.2%. Okay? Hindi given yung 2 million, no? Alright. So, what if you have 2 million? Given ba dito yung 2 million? Hindi. Alright. So, hindi given yung 2 million, no? So, hindi given yung 2 million, di ba? Alright. So, wala. So, meaning, what if you have your 2 million? 2 million is basically your 2 million is basically your assets, no? So, ano yung formula again of the ROI? Controllable margin, you divide it by average operating assets of 2 million. All right, 2 million, ha? 300,000 divided by 2 million, you have 15%. 264,000 divided by 2 million, you have 13.2%. So actual versus budget, you have 1.8 unfavorable. And all right. Sige nga. All right. So improving your ROI. Oh, let's say you have 2 million, no? So manager can improve ROI by increasing the controllable margin. Yes, no? Why? Kasi if you increase the controllable margin, ano mangyayari? You have more yung numerator, or you reduce naman operating assets. Yes, no? So assuming this is the data. So let's say ginawa mo ay magkano yung dating controllable margin? 'Di ba? 264. So ginawa natin ay 600 na. Okay? And you divide it by 5 million. So you have now 12%. 'Di ba? Yan. Okay. So mas maganda. Alright, controllable margin can be expressed by increasing sales or by reducing variable and controllable fixed costs. So madaming ways in order for you to compute for or to improve your controllable margin. No? So if sales is increased by 10%, so what happened? What will happen? No? You have 200,000 additional, no? And there's no change on the CM. So malamang your CM now will increase by 90 kasi 200 times 0.45. And then there's no change. So meaning 600 plus 90, okay? So magkano na ang ating controllable margin? 690. And still you have 5 million as operating assets. You have 13.8, di ba? From 12% to 13.8%, meaning you increase your your ROI by 13.8%. Okay? So yan. So an increase in sales benefits both the investment center and the company's results of the new business. All right. What if naman, ito mas maganda, 'di ba? What if variable cost and fixed costs were decreased by 10%, and then total cost will decrease by 140. From 690, sorry, from 600, you have an additional 140. Okay? You divide it by 5 million. How much is the ROI? 14.8%. Yan. So maganda, 'di ba? So anong gusto nyo? Scenario 1 or scenario 2? 'Di ba mas maganda yung you decrease your variable and fixed costs. Yan. Because kanina you have only 13.8, ngayon meron ka ng 14.8%. Alright. What if naman ginawa mo ay you reduce the operating assets? Pangit, no? 'Di ba? Same lang 600 pero operating assets naman is you decrease by 10%. You have now 4.5 and you have 13.3%. So reduction in operating assets now may or may not be prudent, beneficial in terms of eliminating the over investment in inventory. However, unwise daw to reduce inventories below expected. So bahala kayo, no? Kung anong gagawin nyo. Okay. Alright, factors in terms of ROI. So valuations of the operating assets, basically operating assets, no, may be valued at acquisition cost, book value, or appraised value, or the market value. So depende, no? Margin or income, it may be measured in terms of controllable. Alright, so just read na lang to, no? Basta the keyword here is basically the factor here as long as you have the control over your assets. Yan. Principles in terms of performance evaluation. So basically here, very important also that you evaluate this based on the management functions. So go back to our discussion wherein your actual should always be compared to your budget goals, 'di ba? If it is favorable or unfavorable. Why? Of course, 'di ba? Parang gaganahan kang magtrabaho if you have more savings versus more expenses, 'di ba? All right. Why behavioral? Sabi, managers of responsibility center should have direct input into the process of established goals, no? Evaluation of performance should be based entirely with matters that are controllable by the manager. Yes, no. Top management should support the evaluation process. Yes. Evaluation process must allow managers to respond for their evaluation, and evaluation should identify both good and poor performance. Yan. So ito yung mga sample ng performance report. Just read na lang to. Oh, tapos na pala tayo by Wiley. Any question about ROI or investment? Anong oras na ba? 7:30. Alright, so any question? Malinaw ba? Again, what is the formula again of the investment center ROI?
Controllable
Ayan.
margin divide sa average operating asset po.
Alright. Very good, Jalen. So very important is you should compute first for the ROI. So take note, no, parang kukunti lang yung computation. Ayan. Yung i-record ko, madaming computation. Medyo ano lang yan. Ito lang kasi yung medyo madaming theoretical part. Diba? Any question? Alvon, wala. Alright, so sige. So if no question, I will upload this no in your again si Josh yung taga-remind sa akin. No? Alright, si Josh yung taga-remind na-upload ko na or hindi.
Sir, may next topic pa po ba or wala na po?
Mayroon na,
Last
budgeting
na
pa.
po natin.
Budgeting.
For
wala
today po, sir, wala na po.
wala na. Okay.
Sir, mukhang wala na po silang questions. If okay lang po, sir, gamitin po namin yung natitirang time para mag-thank you
Right.
po. Kasi
Ayun.
na-appreciate po namin yung energy and yung hard work po na
Alright,
pinapakita
thank you.
niyo sa amin.
Alright.
Thank you po.
Alright, sige. Thank you, Jalen, for that. No? Alright. So, hopefully, you learned na for ilan ba? 4 months or 5 months? No? Ayaw tumaalis. Ito nga. Alright, so for the past 5 months, tama ba? 5 months ba tayo? 4 months. So hopefully you learned, no, in terms of the management accounting. Our subject is basically costs accounting and strat cost, tama ba? Alright, so hopefully you learned.
Picture po muna, sir.
On
On
pala,
cam muna tayo, guys.
on muna ang camera niya.
On tayo camera, guys.
Alright. Yun, at least nakita ko rin kayo.
Okay. Sige. Game. One.
Alright, si Ervin
Kita ba ako?
Sir,
Okay,
pa-off.
game mo.
Sir, ipa-off pa ang recording. Okay, sige, bye. Okay, sige. Sige, off ko daw recording.